backpack and a gold chain, and they say he walked into the basement of Henry Ford Hospital at 9:55 and allegedly shot and killed his ex-wife, Latricia Green. He then left in a white Dodge Charger, that was located near Trojan Avenue and Losser Avenue later this afternoon.
This case centers on a documented sequence rather than a sudden act. In the months leading up to August 22, 2025, Latricia Green reported harassment by her ex-husband and sought legal protection. Court records show that she filed for a personal protection order, which was eventually granted but not served. Days later, she was fatally shot inside her workplace at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit. The suspect fled, was arrested hours later, and charged with first-degree premeditated murder and related offenses. The significance of this case lies in what was known beforehand, how it was recorded, and where protective mechanisms failed to interrupt the progression from warning signs to homicide. Latricia Green, also referenced in some records as Latricia Green Brown, was approximately 40 years old at the time of her death. These name variations appear across media coverage, court filings, and employer statements, reflecting changes associated with marriage and divorce. Confirmation of her legal name history and age is available through court records, employment documentation from Henry Ford Health, and obituary listings.
And for me to look out the window, and my house is surrounded by officers with machine guns, and I'm looking at my cameras and they're in the back of my house. I got scared. Thought, what if I was sitting on the porch when he pulled up and got out the car? You know, he could have forced me in the house at gunpoint. I could have been pulling into my garage. He could have seen me coming in, could have came in. It's too many different ways that I could have been attacked. And just like by the grace of God, I was in the house in the bed and I was sleeping, but to awake to all of this going on, it was just
Her residential history and marital status are documented through Wayne County public records. Divorce filings establish the formal end of her marriage to Mario Dwayne Green and provide a timeline relevant to later harassment complaints. Public reporting confirms that Latricia had close family members and maintained regular contact with them. The full scope of her immediate family, including whether she had children, is identifiable through probate records and family interviews. Co-workers described her as long-tenured and familiar within her department. Long-term friendships and workplace relationships place her firmly within a visible social network, rather than isolation, a factor relevant to understanding how widely her concerns were known. Latricia worked at Henry Ford Hospital for more than 2 decades. Public statements from the hospital confirm her long service, though her specific department and job title require verification through HR records. Her role placed her in basement-level workspaces during certain shifts. Access to these areas required badge credentials, and movement through them was monitored by internal security systems. Understanding her exact schedule and access permissions is central to reconstructing the incident. Latricia's routine involved predictable work hours and designated entry points into the hospital. Basement workspaces often involve fewer staff, reduced visibility, and limited public traffic. These conditions can create vulnerabilities, particularly when security checkpoints are minimal or inconsistently staffed. Parking locations, badge entry logs, and security camera coverage define the physical context in which the crime occurred. According to public reports, Latricia had informed others about harassment and unwanted contact. Whether she formally reported these concerns to hospital security or HR remains a key investigative question. Internal security logs, trespass notices, and HR complaints would clarify what the institution knew and when. Mario Dwayne Green, age 53, was Latricia's ex-husband. Arrest records confirm his identity and residence at the time of the shooting. His employment history and financial circumstances are accessible through public filings and court records. Court records show that Latricia sought protection from Mario Green through the legal system. Any prior arrests, domestic incident reports, or protective orders form part of his documented history. These records establish whether the August 2025 incident followed earlier interactions with law enforcement. Marriage and divorce filings outline the duration of the relationship and the timeline of separation. These documents are critical in establishing when the relationship ended and how soon harassment began afterward. Public reporting references repeated unwanted contact, including appearances at Latricia's workplace and phone calls. These actions align with stalking behaviors defined under Michigan law. Police reports and witness statements would further clarify frequency, locations, and escalation. In June 2025, Latricia filed her first petition for a personal protection order. That request was denied. In July, she filed again, and on July 21st, the PPO was granted. Court records indicate that the order had not been served on Mario Green prior to the shooting. During this period, Latricia reportedly experienced continued harassment, including suspected break-ins and appearances by Mario at her workplace. Each incident potentially generated police or security documentation. In the days before the shooting, no public record indicates that the PPO was successfully served. There is no confirmation of increased law enforcement presence or emergency protective measures during this period. The shooting occurred shortly before 10 a.m., with police indicating a time near 9:45 a.m. Mario Green entered Henry Ford Hospital and proceeded to a basement area where Latricia was working. Shots were fired, and she was killed at the scene. The suspect exited the building and fled in a Dodge Charger, traveling toward the Lodge Freeway. Emergency calls were placed immediately, triggering a hospital lockdown and police response. Mario Green abandoned his vehicle and was arrested just before 3 a.m. on August 23rd. Arrest affidavits document the location and circumstances of his capture. The case relies on a substantial documentary record, including PPO filings, police reports, 911 recordings, security footage, ballistic evidence, autopsy results, and digital communication records. Each category contributes to establishing intent, access, and sequence. Key witnesses include co-workers present that morning, hospital security staff, and the individuals who contacted emergency services. Secondary sources include family members and neighbors aware of prior harassment. Officials from Detroit Police, Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, and Henry Ford Health provide institutional context. Michigan's PPO service process emerges as a central issue. While a judge granted protection, service delays rendered the order ineffective. Hospital security policies regarding banned individuals and law enforcement response thresholds for stalking complaints further frame the systemic dimensions of the case. This case illustrates how documented risk can persist across institutional boundaries without interruption. The facts are established through records rather than hindsight, leaving the focus on process, timing, and accountability rather than speculation. Latricia Green's life followed a structured routine shaped by long-term employment and consistency. For more than 2 decades, she worked at Henry Ford Hospital, navigating the same entrances, hallways, and workspaces on a predictable schedule. Her role placed her in basement-level areas of the hospital, spaces that were operational but not highly trafficked. Access was controlled by security badges, and daily movement followed established protocols. The hospital functioned as both a workplace and a controlled environment, with layers of security designed to separate staff-only areas from public spaces. Within this structure, Latricia carried out her responsibilities as she had for years. Outside of work, her routine became increasingly disrupted. Initial incidents of harassment emerged following the end of her marriage to Mario Dwayne Green. These incidents were not isolated. Reports describe repeated, unwanted contact, appearances at locations connected to her daily life, and behavior that did not diminish over time. What began as personal conflict gradually intersected with her professional environment. As the harassment continued, Latricia sought formal legal protection. In June 2025, she filed her first petition for a personal protection order in Wayne County. The request was denied. Court records show no immediate enforcement action followed. In July, she filed a second petition. On July 21, 2025, A judge
And
granted
Fox
the
2 have since
PPO.
learned that Latricia
On paper,
had
the
an
order
active
restricted
PPO
Mario
out
Green from
against him
contacting
after
or
filing
approaching
for
her.
it, get this,
In
twice.
practice,
The first
the
time she was
protection
denied.
depended on service. The order had to be delivered to the respondent to take effect. Records and reporting indicate that the PPO was never served before August 22nd. The gap between judicial approval and actual enforcement became a critical point. Responsibility for service can involve courts, sheriffs, or private process servers, depending on circumstances and fees. During this period, the order existed legally, but not operationally. This stage of the case highlights a bureaucratic interval where protection is conditional, not immediate. The timeline shows that this interval overlapped directly with continued harassment. Harassment did not remain confined to personal spaces. Reports indicate that Mario Green appeared at Henry Ford Hospital multiple times. These appearances raised questions about access and response. Hospitals are not fully open environments, but they are not sealed facilities. Public entrances, shared corridors, and high daily foot traffic create challenges for enforcement of informal bans. Whether hospital security was aware of all incidents, logged encounters, or issued formal trespass warnings remains an open investigative question. What is known is that the workplace became part of the escalation pattern. Appearances at a victim's job site represent a shift in behavior, increasing visibility and risk. Staff awareness, security response, and communication with law enforcement are critical variables at this stage. The absence of documented interruption suggests that the behavior continued without decisive institutional response. On the morning of August 22, 2025, Latricia reported to work as scheduled. Shortly before 10 a.m., Mario Green entered Henry Ford Hospital. Surveillance footage and access logs are expected to clarify his entry point and route. He proceeded to a basement-level area where Latricia was working. At approximately 9:45 a.m., shots were fired. Emergency calls were placed immediately. Hospital staff initiated lockdown procedures. Mario Green exited the building within minutes. Witnesses and camera footage identified his vehicle as a Dodge Charger. He fled the area, traveling toward the Lodge Freeway. Detroit police issued alerts and a manhunt began. Hours later, the suspect abandoned his vehicle. Just before 3 a.m. on August 23rd, he was located and arrested without reported resistance. The interval between arrival and departure was brief. The escalation had occurred over weeks. The final act unfolded in minutes. Following the arrest, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office filed charges including first-degree premeditated murder, felony firearm offenses, and related counts. Prosecutors emphasized prior documentation and the timeline of escalation. The hospital released public statements acknowledging the incident and confirming cooperation with law enforcement. Whether internal policy changes followed has not been fully disclosed. Public attention focused on two questions: how the suspect accessed the hospital and why the PPO had not been served. While reactions varied, the official process moved forward through the courts. The case shifted from emergency response to legal accountability. This case exposed multiple systemic gaps. Michigan's PPO process requires service before enforcement. Delays can result from staffing shortages, costs associated with service, or procedural bottlenecks. Hospital security policies rely on clear communication and documented bans. When threats are ongoing but not formally served, enforcement authority remains limited. Law enforcement response to stalking often depends on thresholds that emphasize explicit threats or physical harm. Repeated presence and unwanted contact may not trigger immediate intervention, even when risk increases. Similar cases in other jurisdictions show that PPO service delays frequently coincide with escalation. Lawmakers have proposed reforms aimed at accelerating service and reducing cost barriers, but implementation varies. To fully reconstruct this case, records must be obtained from multiple agencies: Detroit Police Department, CAD logs, 911 recordings, incident reports, body cam footage, arrest affidavit. Wayne County Prosecutor, full charging file, probable cause affidavit, witness lists. Henry Ford Health System, basement security footage, access logs, visitor records, incident reports, trespass notices. Wayne County Court/Sheriff, certified PPO petitions, service attempts, docket entries. These documents establish what was known and when. Ballistics analysis can determine firing positions and movement. Time-synced CCTV, badge logs, and dispatch records can produce a second-by-second timeline. Cellular and GPS data can confirm routes and timing. Firearms tracing can identify weapon origin and acquisition. Reporting must protect minors, avoid unverified claims, and attribute all assertions to documented sources. Ongoing prosecution requires restraint in releasing sensitive evidence. This case has prompted renewed discussion about PPO service reform, hospital security protocols, and survivor access to protection. Clear public information about protection orders and reporting mechanisms remains a necessary outcome. Why was the PPO not served before August 22nd? What did hospital security know, and how did it respond? Were preventative options available but unused? How was basement access obtained? How often do service delays precede violence elsewhere?